yeah, can't argue with that. Yeah, so in particular, because she mentioned that you've got a web page.
Yeah, record on the computer is better than the cloud. So we're back. John is going to be so crucial to us, and Amira and everybody else. Brother Akishi, it would be lovely to see you if we can. So Amira is our chair. So yeah, let's just introduce ourselves. So my job today, this is going to laugh, is to shut up. It's not to speak. Let's see how, starting now.
Hello, everyone. Lovely to see you all. There we go. So my name's Amira. I'm the current head of the Black Students Campaign at the University of Birmingham. We work with student engagement and generally improving the Black student experience, decolonisation of the curriculum, and multiple other layers of work that we're trying to do. Activisty things, as all of us are here. I'll let John introduce himself, and then we'll introduce our speakers today.
Cool. Thanks, Amira. I'm John Myers. I'm a lecturer in Kingston School of Art and Kingston University, London. I met Aisha. I've been involved. Obviously, we've had strikes recently. I'm sure everyone will know about that. So I've been involved in the actions that our branch have been putting together. And was it last Thursday or last Wednesday? One evening last week, I was in kind of an inter-branch meeting that was just about sharing strategies between different union branches. And Aisha contacted me during that and said that she was involved in a group that was tackling discrimination in unions more broadly. I sort of went, well, yeah, can't argue with that. Yeah, so in particular, because she mentioned that you've got a web page that you need some help with, and like that's kind of within my skill set. So I thought, okay, well, yeah, there's a bit of practical help that I can offer.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you, John. And thank you all for those that are still popping in and things like that. So today's talk will be combining two subjects from both the 8th, which was International Women's Day, and the 21st of March, which was International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, respectively, that is. So we have two speakers, I'm pretty sure. That is Working Chance's River Olivia Rose. And then our second speaker is also Dr. Marian Hersh, and she does lots of anti-racist ally work, as well as supporting the Interunion panel and the organisation. Do we know who's going to be speaking?
Well, this is the best bit. Our River is on the train and she can't get signal. Dr. Marian Hersh, we've got the right link. She's definitely got the number, so she should be able to join.
She'll be here soon.
Well, we hope. I haven't logged on to my email. What we could do is, yeah, introduce, especially I can see Daniel and the Amira, if you can, like, both John and everybody else, number of people are aware. What we want to do is steer this conversation towards how can we make unions equality friendly. Number one, Brother Akish is here and I know he's fired up. How can we make them tackle discrimination, and how can we make them more equality friendly? And like we are here, we're all here from different jobs, some are activists, some are not trade unionists.
Yeah.
Your student union leader, like from, so yeah, Amira, let you steer, and you're doing such a good job. Isn't she great?
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm really excited to be part of this. I know this is my first meeting, and I know I'm awful on the group chat, so I apologize for my inactivity. Yeah, actually, it's quite interesting, John, what you were saying about the strikes that are taking place, because I mean, I'm coming from the student perspective. Black Voices, we've been close collaboration with the Solidarity group that's up here in the Birmingham branch for these strikes. And I think an ongoing trend for a lot of these things is when you're asking people from a lot of these communities where even if they've managed to break the ceiling and get into being in a position of an academic, they aren't from the economic backgrounds where striking is something to take lightly.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite interesting because I know that for the Birmingham branch, the BUCU create like a pot of money to support those who are struggling financially to strike and things like that. And what other ways do you think that we can support those staff and also encourage those staff to want to strike and stand in solidarity?
Ooh.
It doesn't matter if
No,
you're not an expert. I don't expect like.
no, but it is a really valuable question, because I suppose the way what it brings up is like a potential, not contradiction exactly, but like a mismatch between some of the specified aims. So I'm thinking, so in the Four Fights campaign that you have been putting forward. So so one of the things that is explicitly flagged up in that is the race pay gap, right? And then also casualization. So you've got this situation though that so the people who are affected by that, exactly as you said, are in more precarious positions. So we had stuff like, so I guess for me, I feel fairly secure in my role and fairly secure within my department, and it helps. I have the support of my line. My head of department is also a union member and has been on the picket. That makes a huge difference, obviously. But then, the hourly paid lecturers who I work closely with, so they haven't been out on strike because it's a much bigger deal for them to lose that day's pay. And also, well, if management says we don't like the fact that you've been on strike, they can just get rid of them at a moment's notice. So I mean, basically all I'm doing is just restating the problem that you've already identified. So the question of how, I don't know, the question of how do we sort of, I suppose one, on a sort of broader sense, you've got like the issue of communication, the issue of just saying, well, actually, this is a shared struggle, and saying, even if you are perhaps relatively comfortable like me, you do still put yourself at risk by going on strike, and you do take a hit in your pay packet, and that's difficult for anybody. But I suppose something more practically is like, actually, are there perhaps lower risk ways that people can show solidarity and people can contribute? Are there ways that people who, for valid reasons, feel more vulnerable, like that they can still feel as if they're kind of joining in the struggle, but without having to expose themselves, perhaps in the same way that people who benefit from other types of privilege are more comfortable doing?
I see that Susan has her hand up, so I'll let you intervene and then I'll respond.
That's okay. I was going to say I'm from NASUWT, which is the teachers union, and obviously it's like the caring unions, the nurses and the carers and all the people for whom they're working for other people. Yes, so you're crunched between your responsibilities to your students, your children, your these vulnerable people that you're looking after, and the employers. So the most effective way to support people who need to strike is to work to rule short of strike, which is to say it's to do just the job that you're paid to do, that you're contracted to do, and not all of the extras that, quite frankly, employers rely on. So you're being awkward, but you're still there. They can't sack you for doing your job, but equally you are not losing money, or ideally you're not losing money, because you shouldn't be fined for working to rule. So that, I would say, is one of the most effective ways to support casualised staff and staff who are therefore vulnerable, while still ensuring that they get their pay packet.
I think 100%. I know a lot of staff are already employing that like long term alongside the strike days that are taking place. So I'm going to give everyone an opportunity to actually introduce themselves, because there's only a few of us here, and Lizzie said that she'd be really keen to do so. So we'll work our way around. I'll do it in order of what my screen says. So Lizzie?
I knew you were going to do that. Right, so really sorry that River can't be here. She was going to talk about women coming out of prison, I believe, and trying to adjust to life outside. But I'm really also glad that we are getting the opportunity to talk about how people can strike and how people can support strikers. You're a student, is that right, Amira?
Yes, I'm a student at the University of Birmingham.
Right, right. So you would ordinarily, the only sort of strike that you would know about would be ordinarily climate strikes, the Friday strikes.
Yeah.
You wouldn't particularly wonder why your teachers or lecturers were outside striking, perhaps.
Can I come in?
Ordinarily we wouldn't. That is
Can
true.
I come in on
Ordinarily,
that?
yeah.
I think it'd be good to hear on Brother Akish.
No, you can't, Aisha. You're interrupted and
First-
dominated again.
No. I need to get Dr. Marian Hersh because she didn't get the dialing numbers, number one. Number two, what we're really interested, it's going to sound really horrible. We're not really that interested in strike. We're more interested in making the union equal. And if that then leads to strike for Brother Akish, that's fine. Brother Akish, if you're available, could you come in and tell us your vision of what a 20th, you said 21st century. Yeah, and show us your lovely face. Everyone, show us your face.
Sorry, Sister Asha, I'm still on the bus. Can you give, I'm sorry to stop you also. Can you give a chance to Lisa? Let Lisa talk. And then later on, I'll talk. Yeah, let Lisa talk. Sorry about that. Thank you.
I hope Lizzie will come back. I haven't offended her, have I? Oh my God, sorry. Who is here to tell us about? Maybe we should meet Danielle, if that helps. Sorry, I'm now messing everything up.
Sorry, I'm a little lost. What just happened?
I interrupted at a wrong point. I need to get Dr. Marian Hersh, send her the links. Essentially, because
Okay.
I could listen to the conversation, it was going around strikes, and that's fine. I don't know if I've offended Lizzie or something. I'll have to get her back. But after Dr. Marian Hersh, essentially, what Brother Akish and we're interested is in unions not being equality friendly, and how do we make them equal? And that's where I think, Amira, you come in. John is here supporting us. And then Danielle, as an interesting activist, I can tell you she's well happy to see you. Shall we get maybe Danielle introduced? Maybe that would be the best way. And then Amira, now that you know where we're heading towards, I'm going to shut up, honestly.
I think that gives Danielle an opportunity to introduce herself. I think you need to unmute. I think we may be undergoing a technical issue. I'll give Danielle a minute or two. Actually, in response to what Aisha and John and everyone has been saying, I think something that is really important is an understanding of the reason why people are joining unions. If we want to make it equal, they need to be interested in the values. If we want to see equality within those unions, we need to make sure that everyone involved in those unions are interested and devoted to the values of what the union are trying to get, the aims of that union, which is why the goals and the reasons for striking are so actually pivotal and important to our recruitment and to our equalizing of those forces, right? It's also about recognizing that there is a shared interest within movements for equality. If we look at the civil rights movement, all of these different movements that required racial equality, comes ideas of socialism, of classism, rejection of all of these different things, and the two kind of come hand in hand. So it's not about dismissing what the unions are fighting for. It's rather about recognizing that it is a shared struggle, it's a shared goal, and that there can be that unity found. And what we need to do within these unions, if we want to see equality, is not dismiss or ignore what we're already trying to gain, but also cater it towards an audience that is not currently feeling like they're part of that movement, right? That's part of it. I think there are a lot of, and I mean, in the world of academics, we also remember that there is a privilege that exists within that community already. And I'm sure many of those staff want to. It's not necessarily an issue of not wanting to be a part of that union, but also about being able to be a part of that union and then feeling part of that union from that point onwards. So those are the next two levels. And I think a lot of the things that we talked about, those financial things, also those situational things, are the barriers that need to be surpassed fast. So yeah, that's what I would say on it. Danielle, are we able to get Danielle back? If I mispronounce anyone, please do let me know. Just chuck it in because I've just been making assumptions. So yeah.
If not Danielle, asking Brother Buncha would be good because I think he's seen a lot.
Should we carry on with our introductions?
Oh, so sorry.
Bunja, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. I don't know whether my distress is acceptable. I'm sitting under the veranda, doing what we normally do here in the Gambia, brewing green tea. We call it attire. So yes, Bunja Kebe, of course, in the Gambia. I am a trained nurse, more than 30 years experience as a nurse. And then I am working with MRC Gambia as the chairman of the MRC Workers Union at London School of Higher Medicine. So basically, you know, unionism is all about having the interests of your members and staff at heart, you know, fighting for their rights, making sure people are treated equally, you know, and I am pretty sure that's the agenda of almost all the unions around the world, that there is equality, there is inclusiveness, there is diversity, everyone is treated equally, you know. So huge membership here in the Gambia, almost 92% of the staff are members, 1,200 and something members. That's what we have. And daily basis, people are coming in. So that's what we do here in the Gambia. So I came to know Aisha through unionism job when he was at the IWGP. Jim Todd, who has been our mentor, virtually putting us through. You know, so since then, we've been on trainings, this 4OP, you know, something like that for 6 weeks. And here we go again, linking up with people of different colors, people of experience all over the world, learning from each other. And anytime you speak, someone speaks, you pick something, which helps you in your union activities. Basically, that's what we do. I work as a coordinator anyway for a past COVID-19 study that we are doing here in the Gambia, looking at ivermectin, you know, those type of things, how it can impact on with people who are COVID-19. So basically, yes, I stop here. Maybe I'll let someone else go, unless if there are any further questions, I'll be willing to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you touched on some really important ideas about unity, about the sheer diversity that we have here and celebrating those things, and also addressing what the impacts of COVID has been. Is there anyone else? Susan, would you like to, wait, Akish, would you like to introduce yourself?
I think I'm still on the bus, and it will be very hard you guys to hear from me. If you give me about 10 minutes, that would be good. Yeah.
No worries. Is there anyone else who's able to introduce themselves? I'll let Susan go ahead.
Sorry, I thought I had. I'm a teacher. I'm a union member, NASUWT, have been for quite a few years. I'm on the exec committees because I should retire in a few months, but it doesn't feel like it. And I my special interest is in the issue of equality for people who are vulnerable, either mostly from learning difficulties and, shall we say, differences and non-conformity. So, but, you know, they're all what we want for everybody, I hope, with social justice. We want everybody to be included as equally as possible. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Fantastic. It's really enlightening to hear the work that you're doing. I think we've had someone dial in.
Yes,
Hurrah!
that should be your thing. Anyway, I'll shut up for a
Okay, so I think we have River here, right? Oh, no, not River. Dr. Marian Hersh, finally here, has dialed in. I'll let Marian introduce themselves.
Yeah, okay. I'm Marian.
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. So continue
Yeah,
introducing.
okay. No, sorry for getting in late, various technical issues. I suppose I want to change the world and make it better for everyone. Yeah, that might be saying it sounds a bit sort of idealistic, but I think being idealistic isn't a bad thing. I'd like to remove all types of discrimination and barriers so everyone can achieve their full potential and also contribute to society. I actually think that's a right, not a privilege. And in my academic work, I do various things, partly develop assistive technology for older people, also work on end user issues, and I'm moving into participatory design and the involvement of peer researchers, because I think whatever area you're working in, it's important that the people who are actually affected are at the center of things and lead what's happening, because they know what the issues are. I'm active in the University and College Union and a number of other campaigns, and I don't know, I won't say campaign on everything because no one has time to, but equality issues are particularly important to me, and also what gets called intersectionality, the fact that you can be a Black disabled lesbian and therefore experience multiple discrimination. And I think there's sometimes an assumption that you're only allowed one type of equality issue, and that's obviously not the case. So I'm not sure if that's the sort of thing people were expecting, but I've probably spoken long enough.
Feel free to speak more, actually. I think you're touching on ideas of like intersectionality, and I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose partly I experienced multiple discrimination. And, you know, and I know a lot of other people who do. And I think it's just really important to challenge it as well as challenge you know, sort of racism or sexism or ableism, you know, when they occur on their own. I think we all benefit from diversity, and there's even research that shows the benefits, and that the best people generally want to work for diverse organizations, as that's where things are happening, and you're going to get interesting ideas. And you know, I think there are just so many different issues. I mean, I thought I was originally coming into this to talk about racism or combating racism, and I'm by no means an expert on that, but it's, you know, it's also really sort of faceted, or whatever the word is. And like, you know, and obviously a lot of it is anti-Black racism, but it's much wider than that. And in the current context, it's particularly important that, you know, in the invasion of Ukraine, that doesn't lead to racism or discrimination against Russians, because it somehow assumes they're responsible for what Putin's government is doing. I don't know, do you want me to speak more? Does someone else want to
I've
talk?
got some
Do you have questions?
So we'll do, and then I'll let Akish say something. I think you've touched on some really good points about just the need to look at diversity, especially in today's age, and looking at those groups and finding out more. And I'd love to know more about why you support the Interunion organization, why you've always stuck up for us, and yeah, why is it at the top of your agenda? Oh.
Do you want me to answer that now? Or is someone else coming in and I should answer later?
Yes, I said 10 minutes, but I'm sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, do you want me to answer that, or are you going to speak now?
I'll let Akish quickly introduce himself, and then we'll answer the questions and go back to that.
Okay.
I think Akish has lost his signal.
Then we'll go back to the question.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Right, okay, yeah, sorry. I was still on the bus, and I said earlier, I said 10 minutes, so I realized that 10 minutes running out. I don't want to say like I'm lying or something like that, yeah. Yeah, what happened is I want to say thank you very much for all of you. Thank you for Sister Aisha, and thank you Amir, thank you everyone, especially Lisa there. And happy Women's Days today, yeah. So I thought one of the women come and talk about the woman capacity and ability to do everything. So might be I'm still waiting, or might be one of you can talk about it soon. Now, I want to say is that my name is Akish. So we get a strike last time. I work at King College. I'm security coordinator, rep. So our union is called Unison. And we worked very hard last time. Just go back a little bit to just try to get all the security, and for anyone who are under agencies to become a part of King College. And surely they came in, and we work with other unions, UCU, supporting us very much, and the student union. our job pretty much together because we are fighting one, we can say one demon or one evil there. So there's no way. So both of unions or working chemical is fighting one person, which is the person who does not give right to.
Okay, I think we have lost him for a second. So we will return back to the questions, and if the signal comes back, then we'll continue there again. Apologies for the slightly eclectic structure of today's meeting. So actually something that we wanted to ask next is what is the work that you've been doing over the years with anti-racists, essentially? This is for Dr. Marian Hersh.
I think I got signal is so bad where I am. See, can I leave you for a while and then I'll come back later? Is that okay?
Absolutely, no worries.
Yeah, okay. I'm really sorry. I apologize for that. Yeah.
Don't worry. It happens to all of us.
Yeah, okay. So as soon as I get in on site, everything will be fine. This network will be perfect. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just paraphrase the question once more. So the question is, what is the work that you've been doing over the years with anti-racists?
Yeah, I mean, okay, a variety of things, and some of it I should have maybe looked up because I've forgotten a bit. Some of it is through union motions, things like opposing the anti-racist, the different anti-racist immigration and other legislation that's been introduced, and getting UCU to campaign against it, and be active in wider campaigns, and also encourage the rest of the trade union movement to campaign. So I think one motion I put a number of years ago was again about campaigns against the points-based immigration legislation, and we've still not got rid of it, and we need to do a bit more, to try and actually get the racist immigration, the racist nationality legislation thrown out. That's not sufficient in itself, but it's a start. I've also, over the years, been involved in anti-deportation campaigns. Glasgow is one of the places asylum seekers are moved to, and there's unfortunately a so-called detention centre, more like a prison, at Dungavel, and I haven't been involved in actions there for a while, and I suppose also that lockdown has cut down things. But there have been various demonstrations there at different times. There's also been a lot of demonstrations at the place in Glasgow on a road called Brant Street, where there's a sort of bit of a home office where refugees, asylum seekers have to go to sign on, and unfortunately sometimes they get detained. So I've been involved in protests there, various things with the Glasgow campaign to welcome refugees. And, you know, I suppose some things I've been involved in organising actions, some things, you know, it's more some other, you know, a group I'm less involved in organises an action, a demonstration, and I go along to it. And I suppose, you know, the other part of it is being alert to challenge racism if you encounter it, you know, at work, in other activities, but to try and do it in a way that makes the person you're challenging think about things rather than making them defensive and aggressive. So that's sort of a bit of what I've been doing.
That's really incredible what you said, and actually, especially with the work that you're doing supporting refugees, anti-racist groups, it's really interesting. I'm going to open up first to see if anyone has any other questions that they want to ask Marian. So I'll let that happen first. Does anyone have any questions? I'll let Aisha go.
So I tried, Marian, to get other people to ask you the question. Essentially, why you supported us and how can we make unions equality friendly? Because you stuck up for us and Lizzie was there and saw you. And just to give a background, should we give a background? Yeah, essentially I go around the Annoying UCU Solidarity Committee and John has sort of seen that. But I think both John and Marian can see what it is I'm trying to achieve. And at the beginning of this recording, I was so lucky to meet up with Jim earlier. So essentially, I now want to move towards positive relationship building. And I think I've done a good job by remaining quiet for a while, and Amira has done a great job. Yeah, essentially, how can we make unions better? Because Marian, that's something you recognize and you see, and Brother Akish also saw you, you know, defending us, and we were really taken back because you stuck up for us. We didn't really expect you, and you were relentless, just like us. So we want to know, you know, your lifelong, you know, work in trade union. How can we make it more like what we see in Marian? And I'm sure this is a beautiful moment where we come as inter-union, as we, you know, we've got a number of different unions. We got activists like Danielle, and we got people from all walks of life, me and Edwin Person, Brother Akish, security officer. And this is what we're demonstrating is what union should be, like you said, for all walks of life. I don't know who said that, but whoever said that earlier, that's just spot on, because that's what Jim has done, you know, helped me out. And then when we went to Lizzie's show, it just came across beautifully. And Brother Budja with his video, it was just perfection, I think. So, yeah, sorry to rumble on, but yes.
I think they're a mixture of things. I think sometimes just misunderstandings happen and then things blow up. I think, unfortunately, also all organisations, all, you know, however progressive, all of us as individuals are influenced by the society we live in. And there's unfortunately a lot of prejudice against different groups, against Black people, against disabled people, against people for being different. And, you know, I'm not going to go into all the theories, you know, of why there's prejudice, and obviously some of it is scapegoating for a long time, refugees, and, you know, and I think now more migrants were scapegoats for for everything, and blamed for everything that's wrong in society. It's not the government, it's those refugees and migrants who are coming in here and, all the stupid things people say. I think for some people who feel that they're at the bottom of the pile and everyone's treading on them, they maybe want to have people under them who they can, who they feel they're entitled to tread on. But obviously, it's not just people at the bottom. There are a lot of people at the top who are very prejudiced. And, and I think we have to be aware of that and challenge it. And I think in any campaigning, the people who are affected by issues need to take a lead, but other people who are less affected have a particular responsibility to challenge and change things. And I think change does happen, but it's often a slow process.
Yeah.
And, I don't have I don't think anyone has a magic recipe. I also think there are a lot of people in unions who are trying to be anti-racist, and sometimes they get it right and sometimes they don't. And I think, yes, it's good that, that UCU and other trade unions have structures in which Black members can organise, but that what Black members want doesn't always have the traction it should have in the rest of the union.
I think you've touched on something.
And I suppose, it's important both to have separate organisation and to have mainstreaming of issues. So anti-racism and combating other aspects of discrimination are integral parts of everything a union does. So it does equality impact assessments. It doesn't always, have to be very complicated. It also, when the union makes changes, it consults with a diversity of members, including Black members, to say, well, how is this going to affect you? It's also to try and, get Black members more involved, but obviously Black members will only be more involved if they feel the union is listening and taking them seriously. And having more Black members in leadership positions, but doing it seriously, not as a token.
Yeah. Thank you so much for everything that you've said. Just talking about who should be leading, who should be taking on those roles, making those changes. It's been absolutely just gold to listen to what you have to say. I am going to move the subject on now to another part of what we were supposed to talk about today. So that's International Women's Day, and actually talking about women in various contexts when it comes to this activism and work. I'll briefly talk on my part as leading a campaign myself, with a core team with several women, Black women, doing activist campaigning work, a range of ages. I will fly through this. Yes, Aisha.
Just to say, it's not Amira just plugging herself. I said, Amira, we also
Yeah.
need to hear from you. Because I said, Amira, I'll bring you in, because Amira is everything Dr. Hersh said. She is the woman who's leading. And when I just spoke to her, I was like, whoa, she's just, I hope, everybody did give Amira a clap. You're just special. And when you did sarcasm, like I had a fair few seconds to catch up with you. You're just amazing. And I'd love to see Jim and you co-chair. I'm sure it will work. And Jim's just going to be, you are something very special. So yeah, how you became leader, how you set up the group, because you're doing everything Dr. Hersh said to lead. You've created your parallel structure, and the fact the student unions are leading. I annoyed them and they never come back. I wish Melody was here. I was supposed to message her. Manchester
We'll
General
bring them back.
Secretary. You'll bring them back. Yeah, let me shut up. That's what will bring people back.
But yeah, just to touch on the theme of women, and I think what you were saying about those who are part of that group leading, and then those who recognize that supporting, I think is really important that we realize that for women's success, we need men to recognize those issues as well. So I think that's something that's really been pivotal to so many movements' progressions. And so I actually want to lead on to Brother Akik's vision, I guess, for the 21st century activism, for the 21st century union, for the future that we could have. If your connection is working and it's all stable, then we'll go on to that.
You know what? I'll let you. This is beautiful because we're working around Brother Akish. So he just started his shift. So it's on the dot 7 o'clock. So he's probably going to orientate himself. But this is it. We and getting Marian here, the dialing code and all of that. It's a beautiful, beautiful. But tell us a bit more, Amira, about yourself. How you became a leader, why you decided to set up the group, how it works, and what can we learn from you to make our, what we want to achieve as a union, making unions better.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk a little bit about how Black Voices came to be conceived, because initially it was launched by two guild presidents a few years ago. So this is by student union heads, and this is a lady called Toby and a guy called Josh, and it saw a little bit of traction in terms of the work they were trying to do, a little bit of lobbying, but essentially at the end of both of their terms with the union, it was essentially going to dissolve. Now, Toby had brought me in a little bit, and I think this happens with a lot of groups, especially campaign groups, activism work, where there's a certain team that worked on it for a certain period of time, and then they all move on together or progress, and that movement sees its end, right? And it suddenly came to a situation where I was the only person in the team that could see its continuity or could see its growth, or for it to have any progression or any movement. And so instantly within that summer, it was a process of recruitment, rewriting a manifesto, rebuilding, creating a social platform for us, and creating a schedule, as well as providing training and receiving my own training for all of our new recruits. This took place in the matter of less than 2 months. It was a rapid process, and from there, we then went about launching ourselves to students and essentially rebranding and pushing our campaign and making sure that progression was made. From there, we had several events, several work. We encouraged more Black student engagement with our student union, which is something that was actually at the forefront of our campaign. And now we have seen from a guild that had no Black students involved in it to one that, as of recently, has 3 Black people within the core team, which we found out recently. So we're really glad about that. Which is just absolutely fantastic. Myself, I have now been employed, so they're paying me for the work that I do for the campaign for a long period of time, and that's as of 2 weeks. So since June, been doing this all kind of thing as it was. So I'm really pleased to hear that as well. From there, other Black students are starting to get more involved with the Guild. I have a colleague, Sarabi, who's now working as part of the trustee board, which is between the university and the Guild, and just so much elevation for Black students getting involved, getting their voice heard, and making changes to the institution. Our pushing now is really about historical reconciliation and about decolonization. So we've been launching a project with various students and staff, EDI staff kind of thing at the university, to essentially see curriculum changes, chronology changes, assessment that actually forces students to touch on those subjects, because currently it's kind of like a throw-in week of diversity and then you never get assessed on it kind of structure for universities. All sorts of work that we're trying to do in that sense. We're trying to do thank you, John. Also just seeing that I lost my track of thought. Historical reconciliation in terms of the work that we're doing. We're launching a gallery basically where we're getting Black students and artists to create work and artworks and portraits of the Black academics and the Black people that have been pivotal to the University of Birmingham and to Birmingham in itself. Because currently you walk around the corridors of our university and it's very male and white dominated, and we don't see that representation or feel that representation. And it's doing things like this where we start to see an involvement and a reflection between the student body and between the institution that we are in. A little bit about Russ. So Russ is the UCU head, or one of the main people for the BUCU, that's the Birmingham branch of the UCU. And essentially, Russ got in contact with me through Mohammed, who is the head of the, I want to say the name of the organization correct. It is the Anti-Racism Ethnic Minority Organization for the staff at the University of Birmingham. So Mohammed runs all of these various events, and he had been a colleague and a contemporary for me with a lot of the Black Voices events that I had run at the beginning of this term, last term rather. And yes, we had done talks about anti-racism in education and all sorts. And Mohammed had got me in contact with Russ, and then Russ is the one that got me in contact with Aisha and brought me here today. And I cannot thank Russ more, because this is one of the best partnerships that I've been able to make, and that connection of being able to build and really inspire for change. So thank you so much to Russ and to you for bringing us here, and to Russ for actually recognizing the importance of bringing groups together like this in order to see change and recognize the issues within those unions. So that's a little bit about me, about my team, about the work that we do. We are also running an event literally next week, Tuesday, talking about the intersectionality between Black women, because it's Women's International Month, but also because it's an important thing to talk about. And we have talked about intersectionality throughout the year anyway. But yeah, and so many different events that I'm sure a lot of you will be interested in, and some of them are only students, some of them are for everyone. So we hope to get you all involved in making change. So that's my little piece about what Black Voices do, about the incredible team that I have, and just about the successes we've seen and the success that we hope to see as well. So yeah, I think I have spoken enough, so I won't bore you too much. Let's hear a little bit about Lizzie's work, and Lizzie Fletcher, about what you do.
Hiya. Right, sorry I disappeared earlier. I had a phone call, but I'm on my phone, so when I take a phone call, it just kicks me off of here, kicks me off of everything. Right, well, I started as a journalist and didn't think about any of these deep questions. I was just interested in uncovering criminal acts, fraud, corruption, and terrible, awful criminal acts such as murder, etc. And didn't really think about anything deeply until I fell ill. I had a tumor in my head, and it meant that I mean, I survived that and it was removed, but it left me with conditions. My memory isn't brilliant now. I can remember everything. I just can't guarantee what or when. So I had to stop working. And then I burned through my savings. Yes, I'm a white privileged, or I was a white privileged person who earned a good whack and very good at my job. I think, you know, people said I was good at my job, but eventually I burned through my savings, and then I had to claim benefits. And my God, I don't want anyone to ever have to go through that. So if we're talking about discrimination, people who have to claim benefits are discriminated against, just regardless of, I'm sure the discrimination that all of you have met is mine is nothing compared to what you've gone through. But it taught me a valuable lesson that, and I went on TV because I had all the contacts. I went on TV, I went on the Victoria Derbyshire show every week. I went on the radio, I went on ITV News, BBC News. And I said, look, the thing is, I'm going to get better. But what about all those people who aren't going to get better, who need our support, who aren't ever going to be heard? Their voices are never going to be heard. What about them? And I was so righteously angry. And then I thought, well, do you know what? Yeah, I can't work on Fleet Street anymore, but I can set up my own media company. So that's what I did. And I mean, now we used to have an audience of about 20, 30 million across the world, but I could never get hardly any Black, foreign,